Welcome back to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
And we welcome you back to Talk of the Town for this Monday, November 30th. I'm Gary Stevens. We'll be open line following the 11 o'clock news. But we are pleased at least one more time in 2010 to be joined by Ottawa County Sheriff's Lieutenant Eric Westveer of the Marine Unit, and he joins us via the Zoom connection. Eric, good morning and welcome back to Talk of the Town.
Good morning, Gary. I'm glad to be back. Thanks for having me again.
Glad you are with us, and if you have a question about, for the most part, boating, water issues, but also maybe some over-the-road issues as well, Lieutenant Westveer will be happy to answer it at 395-1450, 395-1450. Before we talk about the waters and the boating situation, indeed, it was a case where, for the most part, all hands on deck for the Sheriff's Department in terms of keeping an eye on area roadways. The thrust of the holiday enforcement was on being buckled up, seatbelt use. Obviously, the numbers may not be available right now, speaking at 10:37 on a Monday morning, but certainly I would think the message is getting through people about being able to be buckled up while you're driving.
Yeah, and you're right. Over the course of about the past week, maybe a little longer, we did have heightened enforcement again for the holiday traveling like we do every year. That was grant money through NHTSA that paid for that and was able to put more patrols out there. And we had no fatal accidents over the weekend that I'm aware of, and maybe one or two injuries where people were injured. So definitely the enforcement shows that some of the crash numbers were coming down.
Enforcement is one thing, awareness is another. And I think to a certain extent, these efforts are as much about making people aware as it is actually pulling people over.
Correct. And you're absolutely right. It is about awareness of the safety of your driving habits. But sometimes the stops, the pulling people over, just that visual, 50 cars, 100 cars may go by while that officer's on that stop, and that visual reminder too also does help with that awareness to put yourself back in check while you're driving. I
will pass on something. I made my wife and my mother-in-law chuckle a little bit when I said this, because we headed down to Michigan City for Friday morning, and your colleagues in Berrien County were very busy pulling people over, sometimes state troopers. And one of the things I said, was I passed a motorist saying, "Hey, you're the next contestant on the Berrien County Sheriff Show." And they were saying, "Oh, we got live TV cameras there." I said, no live PD cameras there. No. But yeah. It's almost like it's a game, you're being contested in a reality show when you get pulled over. You don't want to have that on your record.
No, you don't want to win that prize.
Yeah, that's true. It's not a good parting gift, because usually you're parting with money in that regard. Exactly. But again, the important thing about the enforcement is to make sure that people are safe and exactly. We're driving defensively, but driving with their heads on. And it looked like that was the case, because the Wednesday before Thanksgiving is one of the busiest nights of the year for under normal circumstances. Correct. For those who wish to enjoy an adult beverage or two. So
exactly. Yep. And we want to make sure that everybody that night especially, but every day and every night around the holidays is driving safely. And that's the whole point of it.
395-1450, 395-1450 if you have a question for Ottawa County Sheriff's Lieutenant Eric Westveer. Obviously, when we talk about the Marine Unit, we talk in the warmer situations, people enjoying the waters of Lake Michigan, the beach and the surfing stuff, or the waters of Lake Mac and some of the other interior lakes. Yeah, it's a little cold now. Not time to go into the waters, but time for awareness of safety more than anything else. And even though the weather this weekend wasn't too bad, when we get a little bit of a storm in the Great Lakes, especially in the winter, some people would like to get those thrilling, dramatic shots of the water smashing against the piers over at Holland or against the lighthouse in Grand Haven. Sometimes it's a good visual, but to get that visual, sometimes the price may be a little bit high.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad you brought that up, because This time of the year, we are going to start having some increased storms, some weather systems coming through. The water is much colder now than it was this summer. So if you are exposed to it, you're going to have some of those hypothermic effects. And with the water levels, it's not going to take near as much for that water to come over the piers or over even the channel walls if you're standing along that too. So if you do go out, take those pictures, just keep that in mind and stay safe when you're around the edge.
Yeah, maybe let the photographers with the big cameras, the professionals, handle the shots there, and you could buy the prints from the local photo store in a little bit. But the other thing this time of year is that a lot of our outdoor friends, a lot of those who are outdoors men and outdoors women, want to enjoy fishing. Maybe not as many other crafts around. They can be able to maybe get that catch, and yet boating safety is as important now as it is during the warmer months.
It is. And, if I would say maybe even a little more importantly, because of those water temperatures, again, exposure can happen very quickly if you are introduced into the water. And one safety tip I know I've said before, and I'll repeat again, it's worth saying, is if you do go out fishing or duck hunting, whatever you're doing around the waters, make sure that you dress for the water and not the air temperature. Because if you go in, you want to make sure you're properly covered or properly dressed for the water temperature and what can happen there.
There is a thought about water temperature being, it stays warmer longer in the fall and will stay cooler longer in the spring. Mm-hmm. It's still, I would think, still a good thing to be ready for, I wouldn't say ice cold water right now, but at least water that might be warmer than the air temperature, but still cold enough to give you issues medically if you're in there for any length of time.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're right. We may have days, such as today, it's mid 30s. And I'm sure the water temperature is warmer, but it's still cold enough where you're going to get hypothermic effects if you are introduced into it.
Boating. Are we looking at maybe a way of, I wouldn't say way of enforcing, but maybe telling those who might have very small craft, this isn't that time for you to be out, that maybe the bigger craft need to be out because they can be able to handle the elements better than maybe a small rowboat or a kayak or some of the other small crafts that would normally be seen under warmer temperatures?
Yeah. Even some of your small fishing boats this time of the year. Anybody that's in that position, whether it's a small fishing boat, like you said, some kayakers might still go out on a nice day. Obviously, no one's going to tell you not to, but the size of your craft, you're going to have to take in some other considerations is, can you handle the weather if it turns? There's going to be bigger waves on windier days. Can your craft handle that? Because again, those water temperatures are colder.
I know we're talking on November 30th, and it's far, 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 far too soon to be dealing with ice fishing. But there are some rules that need to be kept in mind once we see ice form, if not on Lake Michigan, which is going to be the biggest one, but right on some of the inland lakes, to sort of rules of thumb about knowing when you can go out and do the ice fishing on your favorite pond or stream and when it's not really safe to do so.
Yeah. The biggest thing, again, is make sure that the ice is safe. And there's ways to check that. An ice spud or anything that resembles an ice spud, which would be, a long weighted shaft that you can, stick into the ice just to see, is the ice thick enough or safe enough to even go on? Again, the type of ice, the quality, if you have the ice that you can see through, that's going to be a harder ice instead of something that looks crystalline. That's going to be a little bit of a weaker style ice. So, know your waterways, know your lakes. Again, just because there's some ice on it doesn't necessarily mean it.
Yeah, and the other thing along those lines, Eric, is the fact that it might not be until mid to late January before it really becomes safe to do any ice fishing of any substantial amount, and stay away from, obviously the Grand River. It's always going to keep on flowing. Lake, the Macataw River to a certain extent can also be in that same thing. You might as well take your best ones are maybe in some of those inland lakes.
Right. And even in those inland lakes, anyone that has any type of a spring or a creek feeding into it, try and avoid that area because that's not going to be as solid because of the constant moving water.
395-1450, 395-1450. If you have a question for Ottawa County Sheriff's Lieutenant Eric Westveer, he'll be happy to answer it at 395-1450. Quickly, and I know it's not really in your bailiwick, but it is something of concern to those of us as we are speaking on the last day of firearm deer hunting season. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think we're doing okay in terms of nobody getting hurt in this county from that situation.
That's right. Again, like I said, I don't have all the numbers in, but we have had no reports to my knowledge of anybody being injured in Ottawa County this year so far, the hunting season. So I would call that successful.
Yeah, and a lot of times the injuries are from friendly fire or medical conditions. People who are saying, I'm healthy enough to go out into the woods, and then all of a sudden, you have some issues with the heart. There you go. And it's kind of tough to get the, AeroMed doesn't fly into some of these wooded areas.
Yeah. Another common one we see is the tree stand, falling from a tree stand. So if you are using them, make sure that you're strapped in, make sure you're using them properly. But again, we've been very fortunate in the county this year. Tree
stands, other things. I mean, I know firsthand about falling things. No. 395-4. Let's move on. 395-1450. 395-1450. I'm going to ask you a motoring question, Eric, and you do motoring enforcement as well as water enforcement.
Correct.
And we were traveling back from our trip to Michigan City on Friday, and a vehicle ahead of us, we saw a flat. One of the wheels of the trailer, poof, went down. What, as an experienced a motorist in that regard, what should a driver do when they do encounter a flat and they're on, driving 70 miles an hour on I-196? What's some of the things they need to keep in mind, thinking about it now so that you're prepared when it does actually happen?
Right. The biggest thing is absolutely to remain calm, because if you lose a tire at that speed and you brake hard, you're going to easily lose control of your vehicle. So slowly brake and bring your speeds down and get off to the shoulder of the road. For your safety, I would recommend getting as far off the side of the road as you can. But again, you're down a tire, so it may not be possible all the time, depending on what lane you're in, what the traffic conditions are. But again, slow as you can bring that vehicle to a stop and as far off to the side of the road is the two best things you can do.
And the other situation, and the situation that we saw on the way back, it was a trailer tire that blew. Mm-hmm. That changes things a little bit, because you might be able to drive normally, but all of a sudden you got something wiggling in the back.
Right. Yep. Again, try not to brake too hard. You don't want to lose control of that trailer having that swing on you. And as slow as you can, bring that thing to a stop and get off to the side of the road. But that's a very good point, that it's different circumstances with a trailer.
Do you almost think in this day and age now, where we have to be aware of passing traffic, that while it's nice to be able to test yourself, see how fast I can change a tire, pretend you're a NASCAR pit crew, maybe it's better just to call and let the professionals have it, because they have the flashers, they have the things so that you don't get hit, and they're used to being in that type of situation.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that's a good idea, especially if you're on a busy expressway or freeway where there's lots of traffic. Like you said, it may not be a bad idea to have that wrecker driver come out, or roadside assistance, whoever you may use, and put some of those warning flashers up so cars see it. There is a law in Michigan that says that you have to move over for tow truck operators as well as first responders and law enforcement. So it'll help with the traffic control and probably be a little safer for you. Again, especially if you're on the roadside of your vehicle changing it.
And of course, and sometimes you're driving, you're passing another traffic vehicle, all of a sudden you blow the tire in the passing lane, and you got, you don't want to have to wait till, you got cars passing you to the right. You might as well do it on the left side too.
Exactly. Yeah. There's nothing saying you can't go to whatever side is the safest one to get to.
And then the other thing too, and it's not so much now because we're out of construction season, But when we had the construction situation on I-196 between 32nd Avenue and M6, when there wasn't much of a shoulder in both directions, it gets a little dicey. You might say, I've got to ride on the rims for about another quarter of a mile just so I can get to the shoulder and not have to be stopped in the middle of a lane.
That's right. Yeah. You might have to do that to get to the safest place because again, the damage is done already at that point to the tire and or the rim. At that point, it's your safety and getting to a safe location that's a priority.
2020 has been a year of change and a year of new things and new challenges all around for Eric Westveer and his family. 2020 is also a transition year. Tell us a little bit about some of the things that you'll be doing as we go into 2021 that will be different now that you are a Ottawa County Sheriff's Lieutenant.
So, like I mentioned before, the position changes me, puts me back into the road patrol side of the agency where I came from and built my career in. But with that change, the Marine Sergeant spot also had to be filled. And we've been working on that over the past couple months since my transition took place. And we did make a selection about 2 weeks ago on who the new Marine Sergeant was. He's a current deputy with us, John Knott. Presently works up in the Talmadge Township area of the county. Before that, he worked down in the Hudsonville area for 10 years. He's been with our agency for a total of 13 years. He's a veteran from the U.S. military before he came to work for the sheriff's office and an avid boater and fisherman. So he knows our waterways well. He's very familiar with the boating world. And he starts on the 13th in that position. So we finally have someone filled to take that role over.
Congratulations to Sergeant Knott, and we'll be chatting with him during 2021 as we get into the boating season. But as one who has had to make the transition from road patrol to Marine and now back to road, what are some of the things, some of the challenges that Sergeant Knott's going to have to face? Because it's one thing to be an avid fisherman, an avid boater. It's another thing having to deal with issues away, not only on the waters, but also especially dealing with Lake Michigan.
Yeah, some of the biggest challenges, and it's going to be a continuation of kind of what this past summer was with the high water levels. We did see a large increase in boat traffic this year. Ramps were busier, waterways were busier. With the high water levels, there was a lot of issues with wake violations and erosion problems. And I foresee that continuing on into next year with the water levels and the continued increase in boating traffic. That's going to be probably one of the biggest struggles he's going to have to deal with.
Not only that, but also dealing with people having to, being water wise. And we've had some incidents this year, unfortunately, where we've lost some lives because people were caught in rip currents, and we're going to probably have more. And unfortunately, that's the nature of the Lake Michigan beast. But being aware of letting people know, hey, the waters of Lake Michigan may be nice, they may look nice, but they can be dangerous.
Yeah, you're right. We did have quite a few unfortunate events this past summer. It's probably one of our busiest one in the last few years. And if we have a year like this year where people aren't going to be at work as much or trying to get out and do something outdoors, I can foresee those beaches being very busy as well. And people that aren't familiar with the lake or with the structures that are there being the piers. And I hope it doesn't happen, but we can't prevent it. We can do our best, but sometimes accidents happen, and I foresee that occurring in the future again. And hopefully we can mitigate it as much as possible. But again, that's going to be something he's going to have to deal with too coming into the season.
Now, my final thing, and I'm going to step away from the water situation to back to what you'll be doing back on road patrol, and we started our conversation this morning dealing with the fact that for the most part, Thanksgiving weekend was safe. We didn't have any fatalities, a couple of injuries, but for the most part, relatively safe. Can we dare hope for maybe a similar type of situation for Christmas/New Year's? Because maybe we're not going to have as many people out due to some of the COVID restrictions and cutting down on some of the things, or is it something that, we just have to see what happens and take what it is?
I think both. I mean, we can always hold out hope that we're going to have another, safe holiday season, but we're not going to know, how it goes until we're done. But, at the Sheriff's Department, we're going to take some of the same steps. We're going to heighten awareness. I foresee us doing some of the campaigns that we've done with the seat belts and the drunk driving campaigns to do whatever we can to make sure that we do have a safe holiday season. And when the holidays are done, everybody's back with their families when they're supposed to.
In that regard, having Christmas and New Year's on Fridays as part of the weekend instead of in the middle of the week and might be extending it helps, hurts, or it doesn't really matter really?
I don't think it really matters. You get holidays like that, and most of the people don't have to work the next day or two generally anyway. So I don't think that that's going to have too much of an effect on it. We'll have to wait and see, but I think, a holiday's a holiday. People are going to celebrate how they want to, regardless of what day it's on.
He is Ottawa County Sheriff's Lieutenant Eric Westveer. Our final chat with him as a member of the Marine Unit. He steps aside. Sergeant John Knott, I believe, is what you mentioned, as the replacement to take over the Marine Unit. We'll be talking with probably him as we go along. And I know we'll be talking with you, Lieutenant Westveer, on other matters from time to time in 2021. We want to thank you for joining us again this morning on WHTC's Talk of the Town. Wish you and your family well over the Christmas season.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you very much. Ottawa County Sheriff's Lieutenant Eric Westveer on the WHTC Talk of the Town program.